In today's education news, teachers to be allowed to work from home. Yep, teachers will be told they can work from home for some task under Labour plans to tackle the recruitment crisis in schools. Now, before we get into this, just want to make it clear what those tasks will be. So every teacher is entitled to PPA time. That's 10% of their teaching time is out of the classroom to do planning, preparation and assessment time. Before anyone thinks otherwise, this is not about teachers teaching lessons from home and sort of going back to any sort of online learning. And for a lot of schools, this is a bit of a nothing story because plenty of schools already let teachers take their PPA time from home. Now, there are other schools that expect teachers to be in school to do their PPA. Now, that can be for a number of reasons. Some of the time it's purely because staffing numbers mean that they need to have bodies in school in case an incident happens or someone's off ill or something like that. And then there's some schools who expect teachers to be in school for their PPA because they cannot be trusted. They can't be trusted to take their PPA anywhere else. And actually, I hear some horror stories where some SLT staff have to monitor and sit in on teachers having their PPA to make sure they're doing whatever they're expected to be doing. Bridget Phillipson has said that she wants to make it easier for teachers to work from home in those free periods, PPA time, which is usually used for lesson planning and marking homework. A government source said, unlike its predecessor, this government is taking the recruitment and retention of teachers seriously, which is why they're making common sense changes that enable great teachers to stay in our classrooms. Do I think this is a step in the right direction? Do I think this is alone going to keep teachers in classrooms? I'm not so sure. But the problem with it is, how are you going to implement that in every school? I'm sure plenty of schools will already want to do this for their teachers. They just can't because of staffing issues, because of the logistics of things. So that needs support from the government to happen. Obviously, I'm not talking about those toxic leadership teams that can't trust teachers. I'm talking about ones who would love to provide that option for teachers, but because of staff shortages, logistics, all that sort of stuff, they just can't. So that's my only worry with this. As much as I welcome it, it's whether it can actually happen in reality for some schools. So do I think this is a step in the right direction? Yes. Is this hopefully the first of many more changes to come to help the retention? Hopefully. Do I think this is going to be the solution? Absolutely not. So much more needs to change. Workload is still such a huge issue for teachers. And even though we're trying to help with things like TeachMate, save teachers' time, workload is still massive. And when you've got just 10% of non-contact time to do your PPA, no teacher gets all of that workload done, which is why teachers are working more unpaid overtime than any other profession, according to research from the TUC. So a comment like this saying that critics fear that the boost to flexible working will lead to reduction in productivity just shows how clueless people are as to what a teacher actually ends up doing and what their workload actually looks like. The topic that I've talked about a lot in previous videos is around this idea of flexible working. I think one of the main reasons why we're not recruiting a lot of people from uni into teaching is because it isn't a flexible job. I think a lot of people want to go into careers where they have that hybrid way of working, where they have the opportunity to choose on a particular day if they want to work from home. That doesn't happen in teaching at the minute, but it needs to. So this is a step in the right direction, but I think it needs to go further. If it was up to me, what I would do is I would make sure there is enough staffing in schools so that every teacher can have one day of PPA and take that day from home. I think that would be the biggest change we can make. Obviously, I don't expect it to happen, but that would be a massive step in the right direction, I think. And it happens in some schools. I've just been in a school where they do that. I think it's every 2 weeks you get a full day. So it's your PPA time and your leadership time. You get that full day out of class and you can take that day from home. I know it happens in some other schools. So we've all got to work towards that model, I think, if we really want to push forward with this. Because as Daniel Kabidi here, that lack of flexibility for teachers is not keeping mothers in the profession in particular. Now, this is something I've made a couple of videos about, that demographic of 30 to 40-year-old women, that motherhood penalty, how teaching used to be a job that could accommodate for you having a young family, whereas now it's at a point where teachers just do not feel it's achievable to be deemed a good teacher and also be present enough to be a good parent. That is why we're seeing that demographic of teachers leaving in their droves. So what I would love to know, and let me know in the comments, is what's the PPA set up in your school? Do you already get to take your PPA from home, or are you expected to be in school? And I'm sure there's going to be a teacher who comments saying something like, PPA, what's that?